Hello, and welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. I'm your host, Mike Boland, and I'm a congenital amputee of the right hand. In this show, I will interview other amputees and allow them to tell you their incredible life stories. I'll also feature family members of amputees and others who support the amputee community, all in an effort to discuss the challenges and triumphs of those living with limb loss. So stick around and listen to inspirational stories and find out why we say, We're Not Stumped. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the We're Not Stumped podcast. My name is Mike Boland, and today I got a really great guest. I got Eric Gabriel on. Eric was a semi-pro baseball player in his 20s and 30s, and softball as well. In 1977, he had his first knee surgery, and that continued through over 60 surgeries. And as a byproduct of those surgeries, Eric lost both of his legs above the knee. But that has not stopped him, and he recently earned his doctorate degree of education in organizational leadership from Grand Canyon University. But there's so much more to Eric and the story that he has, and I'm very honored to have him on. So Eric, thank you so much for being on the We're Not Stumped podcast today.
Oh, Mike, I thank you and your audience for having me. It's quite an honor. I'm thrilled to be here, so thank you all.
Well, it's been great getting to know you because we're fortunate. We've been able to have a lot of conversations, just you and I, and it's so fun to get to know you. But since the audience doesn't know you, and we always start the We're Not Stumped podcast with a segment we call In Your Own Words, I'd love to hear your story.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Levittown, Long Island, New York. Sports was always a big part of my life. All through high school, I played 3 sports a year, football, basketball, baseball. But my love was baseball. I loved baseball. And I had some opportunities in college after high school, but because of some troubles at home, I went my own way. And it was one of those typical sayings, I'll go to college next year. Yeah. And next year never comes, you know. So I started a job in project management, and it led on to a career for 30 years as a project manager. I worked on 2 nuclear power stations at Shoreham, Long Island, New York, and Perry, Ohio. And then a good part of my career was working on FAA air route traffic control centers across the country. During that tenure, I also went to school and college at night. That's when I went to college at night, no baseball. But in the beginning, because I missed baseball so much, I took up softball. And it started out in bar leagues, and I was noticed by a few teams and sponsors, and I moved up quickly. And then I started to play on traveling softball teams.
Oh, wow.
And between Long Island leagues and traveling every other weekend, we averaged about 150 games a season, and while still having a full-time job. So it was busy. And I was the type of ball player. I was not shy about running into walls and garbage cans and sliding headfirst. And that's where really the trouble started. After I suffered my first knee operation, I was actually afraid to slide feet first because I was afraid I was going to screw up my knee. So I kind of mimicked the Pete Rose headfirst slide. Yeah. And I was a big guy back then. I was 6'5". I went around 260, and picture a guy running full speed and then launching himself forward and landing on the ground, sliding. My knees took a big brunt of those impacts, if you can imagine, over 18 years. So when my career did end after 18 years, I was haunted, or reality came from what my father said. He goes, the way you're throwing your body around the field, you're going to pay for this when you get older. And like any young guy, I said, yeah, you know, what do dads know? Well, my dad knew right. After I retired, the injuries caught up with me. And like you had mentioned, I'm 66 now, and I've had over 63 orthopedic operations, wow, including having my legs taken off. My company relocated me from Long Island to North Carolina. And that's when the surgeries really started to kick in full blast. And a doctor, after 24 right knee surgeries, the doctor talked me into having an artificial knee put in. which I said, fine, sure, let's go. And within 2 months, 3 months, it got infected, the knee. They took it out, and I was happy they took it out. And I said, well, what new knee am I getting? And the doctor says, we can't put another knee in.
Mm.
So what are you going to do? And he goes, well, right now we're going to put you in a full leg cast from your groin all the way down to your ankle, because without a knee, my leg could have buckled out backwards.
Wow.
So I had a leg cast on for a year. And again, being 6'5", I couldn't drive a car, and because it was my right leg, and I couldn't even fit in the front seat of a car. So after a year, I said, there's got to be something better than this. And they sent me to Duke University Medical Center to another doctor. And he said, listen, we're going to take the cast off and we're going to put a titanium rod in your leg. And it's going to go from your hip down to your ankle. And that'll prevent your leg from buckling out. I said, okay. I didn't have to wear a cast. That was great. If you ever had a cast and had to take showers and stuff, it's an ordeal.
Yeah.
But with a rod in my leg was still sticking straight out. So I still couldn't drive a car. I still couldn't sit in the front seat of a car. And after about 2 months, I wrote my doctor an email and I said, I appreciate everything you've done for me, but I have to get my life back. Yeah. And I said, I'd like you to take my leg off. I actually asked him to take my leg off. Wow. And he normally, when you write an email to a doctor, it takes 24 to 48 hours for them to respond. And I wrote him that email on a Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. And by 10:15 that same morning, he wrote back right away. And he says, I'm not in the business of taking off limbs. I'm in the business of saving limbs. I said, you can't save this limb, but you can save my life. Please take my leg off. So 5 weeks later, there I went to Duke, and he took my leg off. And it was above knee. And I was supposed to be in the hospital for 10 days. And they had to take the titanium rod, and because the rod was tapered, they had to take it out the way they put it in from my hip. They had to pull it back up through my hip. And when they did that, the rod contained part of the infection that was left over from the artificial knee. That infected my hip. I wound up having 8 hip operations.
Wow.
And that 10-day stay at Duke wound up to turn into 4 months I was there. And during that time at Duke, I made a lot of friends. I was surrounded by people 24 hours a day. It was great. It really was. There's really nice people there. So when I finally went home, and I went home to an empty house, I lived by myself. When I got dropped off and I had a prosthetic, they fitted me for a prosthetic. I was in a house all by myself. I was totally alone. And from going to be surrounded with people 24 hours a day to go into silence, that was the real tough part. The isolation was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And so I soon adapted to that. And I said, all right, let me go back to my old ways. I got to find my old roots of being a ball player. And I wanted to train. And I wanted to lift weights again, and I wanted to do all those things. And I figured, well, I can't ride a bike, I can't jog. What can I do? So one Saturday night, me and my friend Jack Daniels sat down over the computer, and we went surfing the net on what I could do. And I came across this machine called an erg. It's an indoor rowing machine. It's a big, big machine, about 10 feet long. And I said, I can do that. I can sit on that thing and row. You're rowing with your upper body, and it's on a sliding chair, and you can use your one leg. And I thought, I can do that. So me and Jack talked a little bit more, sipped a little bit more. And then I looked and I said, well, who uses these ergs? And it was the Paralympic rowers in the wintertime when they can't get on the water, they train indoors on these ergs. So I said, well, that's interesting, the Paralympics. So now I'm surfing some more and I'm drinking some more. And I look up the Paralympic team and see all the sports, and I see rowing. I said, holy cow, that's what I'm going to do. I needed a goal. I said, I'm
Hmm.
going to go to the 2012 Paralympic Games in London. I'm going to make the U.S. team. And meanwhile, I've never rode a day in my life. I've never sat on the machine. But me and Jack decided that was our goal. So the machine, I ordered the machine. It came 2 days later, three big pieces, put it together. And I sat on this machine and I rode. And I rode past my dining room chair going that way and came back past the same dining room chair. And I did that for 5 minutes. And I said, this is the most boringest thing in the world. I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. So the very next day, the sales guy from the company is Concept 2, which wonderful people there as well. He called up to see how I liked the machine. And I was hemming and hawing a little bit and beating around the bush. And I guess he could sense that I wasn't thrilled. And I said, he goes, Eric, you rode for 5 minutes. People go and sit on this for an hour or two. And I'm like, who the hell can sit on this machine for 2 hours and row? And he goes, yeah, they put a DVD movie on and they just row away. And I thought, well, all right, but I don't know. And so I guess there was a little silence between us. And to break the ice, he says, well, 2.5 weeks to having the World Indoor Rowing Championships up in Boston. And I said, that's it. I'm in. Where do I sign up? And he goes, Eric, people have been training for over a year for this thing. There's 2,200 competitors, women, men, girls, boys. And then they have people missing one leg, two legs, arms, hands, everything. And it's held at the Boston University Garden, and I thought, doesn't matter, I'm going. So 2.5 weeks, I just rode. I didn't rode 2 hours in front of a movie. I rode maybe about 20 minutes here and there, and flew up to Boston. And the day before, got a bunch of tips from a bunch of coaches, and the category I was in was above knee, one-legged amputation. And mostly everybody that I was competing against in my class were young men coming back from the service, missing their legs. And these guys were in their early 20s, and I was in my mid 50s. They had washboard abs. I had a beer belly gut. Their hair was cut by design. Mine was falling out from old age and gravity. And I thought, I'm going to get my ass kicked here. No matter what I thought, in my living room rowing, that those thoughts went out the window. So I said, I just want to finish and not embarrass myself, that old adage. So the coaches told me the day before, it was 1,000-meter race. If you can finish around 4 minutes, you've had a good race. And then whatever you do, don't look at the people next to you racing, because you'll get caught up in their race. Worry about
Interesting.
what we told you how to do. Do it. And these machines have a damper setting on them, like a 10-speed bicycle, where the pedals would go fast. Same thing on that machine. You pull them real fast. Yeah, my dog wants to talk with me. Hold on, well, 1 second. Stay with me. My dog Yogi, he's a 110-pound Bernedoodle. You go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen some pictures of that dog. My dogs will be walking around here in a second, I'm sure too. So gotta love dogs.
So 10 on the damper is like the highest where you're going uphill on a bicycle. We almost have to stand and push yourself. So they told me the day before, the average rower will compete at a damper speed between 3 and 4. He goes, you're not built like a typical rower, which is very tall and lanky. I'm built like a football offensive lineman. I'm not tall and lanky. They said, we're going to set you at 10, the maximum. And within a few minutes, or not even minutes, in a few seconds, you're going to feel like you're pulling a house. But one of your pulls will equal 3 of theirs.
Oh.
So that was the premise. So did everything they told me to do. Finished the race. Couldn't breathe at all at the end of it. And I actually came in second place.
Wow.
I came in at 3 minutes and 58 seconds, and I missed first place by 3 seconds.
Wow.
So
That's great.
That was nobody really could believe that because they knew that A, the size of me, and B, never rowing before. They thought
Yes.
that was odd. So when I got home, um, I got a phone call, believe it or not, from the head coach of the United States Paralympic team.
Wow.
They said, "We got your results from the World Championships. We want to fly you to Oklahoma City so you can try out for the team at our facility." So I said, "Son of a gun, this thing, this thing about England may come true." So the following week, they flew me out to Oklahoma City. There were 7 other individuals, men, with me. Um, First guy was missing his eyesight. He was totally blind. Guy behind him was missing an arm, missing a hand. I'm missing a leg, a foot, all the way
Yep.
down. And we're wedged into these rowing sculls, which are very, very narrow. And here we are, the 8 of us, rowing down the Oklahoma River in unison. And it was the most surreal event that I ever dealt with.
That's neat.
So with that, and with my rowing experience at the indoor rowing experiences, I didn't make the team, by the way. So being so inspired and motivated by the athletes, I decided to go back to school. I had a master's degree at the time, and I was determined to. My next goal was to go to school, get a doctoral degree, and write my dissertation about adaptive rowing.
Yeah.
So through research, I found a wonderful university, Grand Canyon University. Go Lopes! And I was on my way, and I was about to complete everything. I wrote my dissertation. I was 2 weeks away from defending my dissertation and 4 months away from graduating, if I defended my dissertation correctly. And 2 weeks before that defense, I woke up on a Monday morning with 102 temperature. And I still had it by Wednesday, to the point where they had to rush me back to Duke University Medical Center. And I had an artificial knee in my so-called good leg, and they wanted to drain the fluid off of that knee to find the white blood cell count, and which they did. And a normal count, they told me, was between 0 and 3,000. And about a half hour later, they came into my room. They didn't look good. And I said, "What was the reading?" And the doctor said 45,000. And I said, "You mean 4,500?" And he goes, "No, 45,000."
Oh.
And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" And he goes, "I'm going to tell you, you have to make a decision, but the decision is actually made for you." I said, "What decision is that?" He goes, "We're going to have to take off your other leg." And I thought, you got to be kidding me. I mean, the first one I decided to do and I was prepared for. This one just took me totally by surprise. So on a Monday morning, I woke up with a temperature, and Friday my leg was gone.
Wow.
So I wasn't there for 4 months. I did get out of there in 10 days, and now I had to defend my dissertation.
Yeah.
And I did defend it in front of a panel of 4 professors. I was successful in doing that, and now I'm good to graduate. Well, now I have to get my leg to heal, or stump to heal, because I can't get on a plane. On top of everything else I've suffered through with operations, I've gone through 2 bouts of pulmonary embolisms, and I'm on blood thinners. So I can't get on a plane with an open stump wound and everything else. It's just a recipe for danger. So now I'm fighting the clock to get my leg to heal, so I can make the trip out to Arizona to graduate, and which I did do. I made the trip. It was a fantastic event. And it's funny, I try to use so many things to motivate myself in life. And because I was doing a lot of online studies, where you have to be pretty resourceful. Whenever I was having a bad day, or was kind of say, when is this ever going to end? I used to watch videos of past graduations, and I kept saying, "That's going to be me.
Yeah.
That's going to be me." And I'd get pumped up after an hour watching one of these videos, and I'd go back doing my schoolwork. So yeah, they flew me out here, and I wheeled myself across the stage and accepted my degree, and I was never so proud. Um,
Yeah, and they actually did a story on you, and we'll link to it because I did find it. That's amazing.
yeah, yeah. So when I got home from there, I decided I wanted to go row one more time. So I flew to Boston to the World Championships again. They have it once a year, and this time I actually came in first place, and I came in first place in the 60-year-old and older division. Where
That's
the
awesome.
first time that I rode, they didn't have age groups. It was you
Oh.
locked in with the young guys and the old guys. Well, now they had age groups with your disability. So I
Hmm.
was in a category no legs over 60 years old, and I came in first. That's the good news. The bad news is I was the only one in that category. So so I feel bad if I don't tell people the truth. I feel like it's going to come back and haunt me. So but at least I went and I showed people if you're in your 60s and you're missing your leg, you can still go out there and compete
Yeah,
and try your best and things like that.
absolutely. You know the
Um,
thing. Oh, God, I'm sorry.
no, no, please, please.
I was going to ask you because one of the things that as I was reading about you, you have many articles in Amplitude magazine, which I will link to in both YouTube and all the audio only, like Apple and iTunes and things like that, Spotify. But as I was reading about you and your knee surgeries and things like that, I think this is a bigger story of boy. I don't know if you don't have any luck, it's bad luck or whatever because you had two like people can get along with what you had done. It was the infections that really affected you. Is
Mhm.
that correct?
Yes,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
yeah. So it's one thing. I mean, like Bo Jackson played with an artificial hip, right? Because I know you're a big baseball player, but you had the unfortunate circumstances of having to go through something additional, and that's yeah, that's the and you had the double whammy, and that's a big
yeah.
part of the story.
And like I said, and one I planned for, or I was mentally prepared for, and the other one just totally took me off guard. And having missing one leg, missing two legs is totally different ball game. Um, with one leg, you can still stand up with the use of a cane, even if you don't have a prosthetic. You lean against the counter. You can reach stuff in a cabinet. Um, you can still somewhat function with no legs and no prosthetics. I'm wheelchair bound. Um, let a couple of circumstances when I got home from the hospital after my second leg was amputated. They took me home via ambulance, and I have 5 steps that lead up to my front door. Well, with no legs, I can't get up those
Hmm.
steps.
Yeah.
So the ambulance people had to call the local fire department. They had to come. This is now Thanksgiving Eve, and transfer me from the ambulance to the fire department gurney. I had all these fire department guys pick me up and carry me into the house. And
Hmm.
every time for 2 months, I had a doctor's appointment. I had to call the fire department to get me out of my house, put me in an ambulance, and when I got home, reverse that sequence. Um, and I remember I woke up on Thanksgiving Day the following morning in my bed, and I was so happy to be in bed. And I went to sit up. I couldn't sit up. People
Wow.
don't realize without your legs to pin you down and
Yeah.
launch yourself up, you can't get up. I literally I was like a ball rolling around the bed. I couldn't get up. I couldn't sit up. Um, when I went for my cap and gown fitting for graduation, you ordered this stuff online, and I was just renting my gown. I wasn't going to buy it. And they said, "Okay, how tall are you?" I thought, oh, God. So I said, Oh, and with that tape measure in the hospital, I went from 6'5" to 4'10"
Wow.
after having my legs. So that was a total mental blow to myself.
Sure.
But I tried to explain to the lady on the phone. I said, "Listen, I was 6'5". I'm 4'10". She goes, "All right, 4'10". I said, "But my upper body is the body of a 6'5" guy. So don't go by the 4'10". She goes, "No, no, I totally understand what you're going through. Okay, great." So when I arrived for graduation, everybody, they send you to this area where everybody's putting their gowns on and stuff like that. And they found mine on the rack and they pull it off. And it was like something that could have fit a 3-year-old kid. She got a gown for a 4'10" person.
Like,
So thank God they had some extra gowns there, but those are things you don't prepare for.
yeah.
Um, uh, but yeah, so missing two legs, it's quite a different ball game than missing just the one. That's for sure.
And you
Um,
you had mentioned something that waking up in your home, and I know that right now with some of the things you've gone through and other life experiences, you're really needing some assistance. I think for making sure that you can keep that home. Is that correct?
yeah, going back to the Rocky saying to lead into this,
Yep.
I'll take whatever life has to throw at me, and I'm going to keep moving forward. Um, After my second amputation and everything else, I guess that was a little bit much for the marriage or my wife, and she left the marriage,
Hmm.
physically left the marriage. And when she left the marriage, she took our van with her. And so I had no means of going anywhere.
Wow.
Um, Other than going to court 3 times, um, which I had to rent an ambulance to take me there with a battery operated chair. Those 3 times I went, maybe average, maybe 10 hours total. Other than those 10 hours, I haven't been out of my house in over 2 years.
Wow.
I'm locked in my house. The fortunate thing is, my house has been modified for a person in a wheelchair, me.
Okay.
I have wooden floors for the wheelchair, grab bars, toilets have been raised, doorways have been widened. I have an elevator lift in the garage for my wheelchair. I have a staircase lift that I can get upstairs, battery operated chairs. Everything for me is built into this house. When we went to court, she wanted half the house. In North Carolina, it's a 50-50 law. So no matter what, she would get half of the house. He'd have to sell it. And if I had to sell the house, I couldn't duplicate it, couldn't afford to duplicate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And thank God I had a good, hardworking lawyer. And what could have been her getting $125,000, um, and me losing the house and everything else, I basically owe her to keep the house and legal fees $50,000. So save 75,000.
Got it.
But now I'm in a panic mode of trying to raise $50,000 because I can't get out. I'm having a hard time finding a remote job to work
Yep.
at from home. So I started a GoFundMe account, and it's called Save Eric's Disability Adaptive Home. Save Eric's Disability Adaptive Home.
I will link to it for sure, and everything that.
And the quest
Every,
is to raise
yep.
$50,000. I have to raise that rather quickly.
Okay.
As you heard before, it's me and my dog Yogi.
Yeah.
If I lose the house, I lose him.
Yeah.
I'll be in a home somewhere where I'm too young for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
And so if the viewers are watching, if they know of anybody, if you know of companies, if you know of charities, organizations, people, I mean, $50,000 is a lot of money, but if everybody divvies it up, it's doable. And quite honestly, it'll prevent me from being put out on the street. That's for sure.
And you mentioned something earlier too that I think escapes a lot of people. Your house is already adapted to you. The difficulty in getting that done, or it's almost impossible to find another house like that. Let's face it. But that it takes time, it takes money, and it's already there. So that's the thing about saving
Right.
where you're at right now that I think is extremely important. And I'm glad you were able to share this story.
No, and even a judge saw that, was saying, no, you can't put this guy out on the street. That house was made for him. Um, but so at least I have a chance to save it, and that's the important thing. Um, but
Yeah, we'll definitely link to that and get it. Let's get everyone together and support this. And to
yeah,
your
I'd
point,
love
I was going to say, and to your point, you are also you're looking for employment, and I can tell you from personal experience as being a lifelong amputee, even though it's just a hand for me, it's difficult for people like us to find jobs. And I think that's another thing that I hope that there's someone listening out there, because you're highly educated, highly experienced, and highly motivated. There has got to be an opportunity for you out there as well.
Yeah, with the pandemic, when it hit us, remote jobs were part of our everyday language.
Yeah.
Well, now remote jobs are quickly going away. They're wanting everybody to come back,
Yeah.
physically in their buildings. To find a remote job, basically, I would still have to maybe go into the office 1 or 2 days a week, which again, I don't have a van. Like if you take a look at the top three things on my to-do list,
Yeah.
that saving the house is a number one. On top of everything, that's a number one. Um, the second thing was to get a job, a remote job.
Yeah.
And I'm set up at home. I have computers, desk. I'm set up to work from home, so that's doable. And I know I can work by myself. I went to school by myself. I'm independent. I know
Yeah.
how that works. The third thing would be a van, obviously, to get a hand control uh, van. The irony of this was 2 weeks before I lost my second leg, I actually took a driver's test with a hand control van and passed the test.
Oh, wow.
Because in North Carolina, if you had a van, which I had a van, they will take your van and modify it with a ramp or a platform lift and hand controls for free.
Wow.
So, but that you're expected to pass the driving test first, which I did pass. Then I lost my second leg, that got put on the shelf, and then after she left, she took the van, so all of that was gone. It's weird how things work out.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
but the other things that I want to accomplish. I mean, there's so many things I want to accomplish. I just wrote a book. It's called Gabriel's Row on the Wings of Angels, and it takes you through my whole life story. And I believe the Lord puts people in our lives, and I call them angels. And we may know them, we may not know them. And they're there to serve you a purpose. They're there to help you in a time when you need that help. And you may not know it at that time. And when their job is done, they're gone. And throughout everything I've gone through, I've had angels come in and help me. And I've gone back to thank them months, years later. And these people have disappeared off the face of the earth.
Wow.
And so it tells about all the things I went through. I mean, the two bouts with the embolisms, which should have killed me, all the operations, and it's funny stories too. I mean, it's comical things that can happen to you, and if you take yourself too seriously, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
You're definitely not going to make it. So I wrote the book. I want to get that published, but it is written. Along with the name of Gabriel's Row, I want to start a little, doesn't so much have to be a nonprofit, but I want to develop a site where people can talk about if they're having a rough day.
Yeah.
If you're an amputee, I'm having a tough time picking out a college. How can I do this? What about sports? What things can you do? Excuse me, because what I found out when I was doing research on so many things, it was me surfing the net. You went from one website to another website and nobody to talk to.
Yeah.
At least you have, with me, you have somebody to talk to. And I can tell you, this worked for me. It may not work for you, but you can do it this way. And if that way doesn't work, there were other things to do. So I'd like to share my experiences with other people that are going through this.
Well, that's what I've learned by getting to know people like you and others, is that it is a very strong community and everyone's willing to help. And that's what I really like about the community.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. If I think once you asked me how do people respond to you being an amputee, and if they're strangers, like if I'm in a store or whatever, people will fall over backwards trying to open up a door, get something off a shelf for me. I can't tell you how many times that I'm thanked for my services in the armed forces, which I wasn't. Um, so strangers, they go all out. Um, Other amputees or disabled people, that's like a common bond. We
Yeah.
belong to the same fraternity,
Yeah.
uh, you know. And friends and family, they don't know how to react uh, because they knew me as a two-legged, able-bodied guy.
Yeah.
Now I'm no legs in a wheelchair, and they don't know what to do. They don't know how to respond. That's the awkward thing. I thought that would be the easy one, and it's not. So what I can tell certain amputees that um, family and friends, they want to help, but they don't know how to.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to open the door up for them, almost ask them for help. And that was a tough thing for me because I had so much pride
Yeah.
that I thought I could do everything myself. I didn't have to ask for nothing. Until you get rid of that ego and raise your hand up and say, could you help me with this? Your life becomes a lot easier. Plus, you've just invited somebody into your world, which they didn't know how to approach.
Yeah.
So you're doing both of yourselves a favor by asking for help.
Well, that's a great way to put it. I hadn't heard it that way, but that's a very good way to put it.
Yeah, but for the longest time, I thought I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, and you can't.
Yeah.
Um, so, but on the lighter side of things, I have a dream of giving a commencement speech, graduation at Grand Canyon University. I'd love to
Wow.
do that.
Well, let me know when you, because I'm in Arizona. We already know that. We already established that, but I don't know if the listeners know. So when
Yeah,
you're out here,
you just want me to pay for the Jack Daniels.
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well,
On.
you have better conversations with Jack Daniels. Mine usually I'm meeting the floor because of Jack Daniels. That's the conversation I have.
Yeah, but you know what it is? Having no legs, I don't have that far to fall. So the floor doesn't scare me. um, let's see what else. I want to go back to Boston and row one more time. One more time. One thing I want to do, oddball thing, I'd like to do the Boston Marathon in a racing wheelchair, one of
Yeah.
those big ones. I'd like to do that. And the other oddball thing is I'd like to throw out a first pitch at a Major League Baseball game.
Oh, that let's make sure that happens. That would be fantastic. And I know who your team is. It's the Yankees, correct?
I love the Yankees.
Yeah.
Yeah, my prosthetics were done with Yankee logos on them and everything else. But I in that amplitude, I've written two. There's four articles in there, and I've written two of them. And one was adapting to life in prosthetics, and that was a big goal. I couldn't wait to walk and do all that. But having two above knee prosthetics, they're very, very big, very cumbersome, very heavy, and trying just to get them on by myself, I couldn't do. I had to have two other people get me up and into these things.
Yeah.
And it got to the point after writing this article about how I couldn't wait. The realization was it wasn't meant to be. So now I had to confront myself with you're going to be in a wheelchair, and now I have to go back and write another article saying, okay, this is my life in a wheelchair. And you know what? It's not that bad. I have my bad days, as we all do. The key to it is, you know what? Go outside, scream at the sky, curse at a tree, do whatever you got to do, get over it, and start your next day all over again. If you hold back and let it build up, you're going to blow. So yeah, I know I have my bad days, and I ride them out, and that's all right, you know. And that's when you call a friend. That's when you call a family member, you know. Because believe it or not, they want to know. They want to know what's going on. So
That's your point. We all have those days. We all do. It doesn't
yeah,
matter. That part, yeah, just I guess that's a common bond between all humans, for lack of a better term. Now,
yeah.
people want to get a hold of you. I know you have a website. It's okay for me to share it in all the links, correct?
Yeah, you can share that Wix site.
Okay.
You just on the internet go and just type in Wix site. My name Eric Gabriel, and that has videos. That has the Amplitude magazine
Yep.
articles, newspaper articles, a biography. It's work in progress, but there's enough on there to kind of let you know where I'm going.
Well, there's been a lot said and done with you. I've seen a lot of the television interviews you've done. Certainly, the Amplitude magazine and Duke University, GCU. They did a story. I mean, there's quite a bit. That's why I'm very honored that you took the time to talk to
No,
me
no,
on the We're Not
I'm
Stuff
happy to be
podcast.
here, and you know, again to the viewers, if anybody knows of anybody that can help, please. This house is my whole life right now. I
We're gonna
cannot
get it
lose
done.
this
Let's get it
house.
done. Yeah, let's get it done. Let's support this. And
Uh, and
I,
you know what? I want to tell the rest of the audience, which they don't know. In 1974, I was a junior in high school, and one Friday night, I was with my high school sweetheart sitting in the back row of the Levittown movie theater. And I was trying to get her attention, you know, on this football player in school. And all she can do, and I was competing with this young movie star on the big screen who was missing a hand, had a prosthetic. He was getting the sympathy. He was a cute little boy. Plus, he was getting the sympathy, oohs and ahs from the girls in the audience. So I had no chance with this high school
uh,
sweetheart. And last week, I get a phone call from that budding superstar of the big screen. That was you, Mike,
yeah,
in the trial of Billy Jack,
yeah.
making your cinematic debut.
And finale in the same movie.
Yeah, and you ruined my Friday night. That was a finale for me. So, but
That is so funny for you to bring up. Gosh, yeah,
believe it or not, this is not almost 50 years to the day when you called. And
yeah,
I said, well, what is the ironic twist to this? That you're
yeah.
calling.
Yes, I was 8 years old when I was in that movie, and thank you for bringing it up. It's it's funny, you know. I do let people know about it, but I also let them know that they do want to watch that movie. You know, they say, "Oh, you're in the movie. I got to see it." It's like you're not gonna get that 3 hours back. You're not gonna get that back in your life. But it was a great experience, and just to be clear with everyone, Mr. Laughlin, as I used to call him, you know, Tom Laughlin, Billy Jack, and his daughter, who I spent most of my scenes with. Her name, she played Carol TC, Teresa Kelly now Laughlin. Fantastic people.
Right.
I mean, they're just great family.
No.
Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, and neither's their mom, Jean Roberts, who played in that movie as well. I mean, just it was fun. Thank you for bringing that up.
No, thank you. Well, people, they should read up on your life because it's very inspirational. From that, you went into pro bowling, and you've done a lot for yourself. Motivational speaking. You're a car modeler. Uh, People see your website. You've got the show car there out there. Beautiful.
well,
So yeah, you've done. You've come back and worked very hard.
Well, thank you for saying that. You know, and as you bring up the Rocky quote, I remember exactly where that scene was. He was right outside his restaurant talking to his son, and I love that movie and I love that
His
scene.
kid wants to know why the heck are you still doing this? Why are you fighting anymore? You know, arguing. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I've had people say, "What the hell are you doing? You're in your 60s. Well, you know, I work out, I row every day. Why are you doing this?" Like, you know, it's just
Keep pushing forward, like he said.
yeah. So and plus with no legs, I need my strength because my arms serve double duty. You know,
Oh
not
yeah.
just doing what normal arms do, but they support me. I push off them, so
Yeah.
it's a double thing. But I tell myself I'm doing it to compete in rowing and stuff, but maybe
I'm
I'm
sure
just
you will
doing it
do
to
it.
survive.
I'm sure you'll do it. And thank you so much for being on the We're Not Stumped podcast. This was great. And I'd love to have you back on for some updates, whether it be the rowing, how well the GoFundMe's going, your new website, things like that. So thank you so much.
Okay, I thank you very much, and thank you to your audience for being patient with me and my dog Yogi. I call him.
Love the dog.
That was the We're Not Stumped podcast, hosted by Mike Boland. If you want to be a guest on the program, reach out to Mike at his email address, mike@mikeboland.com. This podcast is produced by One Hand Man Productions. If you are looking to start your podcast, go to onehandmanproductions.com.